Welcome back to the grim darkness of the 41st Millennium. I'm Inquisitor Temperance Pryce, keeper of the Inquisition's Black Library, and this is the third volume in a report on the Valentyne Heresy, an actual play podcast set in the Genesys Adaptation of Warhammer 40k's Dark Heresy RPG. This report features Game Master Tom McGee and players Ryan LaPlante as Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne, Tyler Hewitt as Attikus Vis, and Laura Hamstra and Borovic as brand new characters. My report shows that Inquisitor Valentyne has executed Glasgow Vicodin while Attikus Vis slaughtered Inquisitor Billingburg in single combat. With two members of the confederacy killed and a string of fallen acolytes behind them, have they improved the future or doomed the Emperor to a worse fate? And what will happen next in their journey to save the Imperium? Find out next in this episode of the Valentyne Heresy.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only peace. Greenery, where planets had never seen it, is abundant. As verdant forests, jungles, fields begin to grow, taste buds that had never known or even conceived of fresh produce, vegetables, fruit, are beginning to reawaken, to taste things their brains couldn't even conceive of mere centuries before. Old weapons factories now turn towards habitation, towards farming, towards industry, ways of reconnecting the galaxy as humanity enters a new golden age. And all it took was a brave group to kill the Emperor of mankind. And once they achieved that, everything got better. And here, Valentyne, on the first election of the new Primarchs, you see the galaxy you know in tatters. Golden, peaceful, joyous tatters. Valentyne, this is not the first time you've had a new glimpse of the future that you first saw upon Gideon's Fist. Not the first time that you viewed what the grand conspiracy, currently only known to you as the Confederacy, is attempting to pull off. After witnessing the death of the Emperor himself, you and your retinue in the various forms that have taken have fought back against the visions, managing to, in fact, kill two of the Confederates, Glasgow Vicodin and Barthus Billingburg the 13th. With their deaths, the visions have changed, and you're getting a distinct sense now, as these chaotic dreams invade your mind, that the butterfly effect of the Valentyne Heresy itself, of course not known as such to you just yet, is having tremendous effect on this future, and yet the future still marches ahead apace. Despite the loss of these two figures, and also the plan B of the new men being built by Fabius Bile purposefully to act as a backup should Vicodin have failed in his duties to deliver a mercenary army, still you're seeing this strange future, this strange, peaceful, beautiful future. Of course, that's what's happening behind your metallic eyes, and not necessarily something you share. That said, every time you awake to the admittedly plush, if still 40k pointy, sharp, skull-covered trappings of Billingburg's old stateroom, it's a bit of a relief to step out of this weird gilded nightmare into a world you're more familiar with. You're woken today by an alarm klaxon blaring throughout Marnie's song as the ship is rocked by a massive explosion. Over the sort of scratchy Voxcom, you hear Grimly, your erstwhile pilot, just kind of muttering back, yeah, hey Chief, sorry, I think we might actually be fucked. There's a bunch of them coming in on us. Looks like two different attack groups. Attikus is here telling me I gotta pull it off, but we need you on the bridge as soon as and then his mic cuts out. Valentyne, this isn't the first time you've been on a doomed ship, but it is the first time you've been on one that is under direct assault in warp. Meanwhile, it's been a while, my friends. Welcome back to the Valentyne Heresy. Before this horrific morning, Valentyne, that you encounter, you and Attikus have had time aboard Marnie's song. So we'll catch up to ourselves in a few moments. But I wanted to make sure before we do, we get a sense of kind of who both of you have been over the past little while. After leaving behind Vicodin as well as Marnie, who died heroically in your attempts to kill Glasgow Vicodin and put an end to his horrific practice of farming orcs for booze, the two of you took control of Barthus Billingburg, the corrupt Inquisitor's ship. You rechristened it Marnie's Song. And together we set out to in search of an Inquisition base that wouldn't be one you've ever visited, Valentyne, but that is known to be sort of the closest port of call. Of course, you've been cut off from the Inquisition since Gideon's Fist went down, and as useful as the people you found along the way have been, you do think it's time to come in from the cold and see if you can get some reinforcements and some additional information. So some housekeeping. First and foremost, Valentyne, you'd lost your arm and you'd fractured your leg. So those will have been repaired for you. Do you think you had your old arm reattached, or did you get a servo arm?
Valentyne would have taken the best thing that would have let him get functional as quickly as possible. He's not really interested in kind of sitting around and waiting for a more aesthetic healing process. So if he had a bad arm, the arm goes, new arm, thumbs up.
Great.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. With that in mind, then, I think kind of more of like a stripped down C-3PO or Luke when he doesn't have the hand on his
that's what we talked about. So
sort of the more Terminator arm.
Keep it under his jacket. He's not somebody who'd like tear the sleeve off to show it off. That's not his style. And he already tended towards gloves, so I think it's just like the rest of his augmetics. It's just now he's even more robot than man as people are exposed to him more over time. And he's got a hell of a grip to shake hands.
Excellent. So we've cut back to the day that Valentyne, you received your final report from Attikus and the remote crew that you dispatched to deal with Fabius Bile and the new men. This was a lead you obtained from Vicodin himself, as well as Billingburg, about the Plan B situation, sort of deep in space. And as a result, you sort of looked into what assets Billingburg had, and were pleasantly surprised to discover that he actually had several sort of remote things he could activate, sleeper cells, if you will, on things he called tomb ships. So in looking at what files you could get into, obviously you couldn't get into all of them, you're able to activate Abacus 003, who is able in turn to activate some agents on your behalf. And the good news is that, as the Emperor always provides, they were successful in their mission at some cost to them, but names on a ledger have never meant much to the Inquisition. So whoever died, however handsome and capable he may have been, can go fuck himself, because he is, of course, yet another name on the ledger. So honestly, you're feeling pretty good. This is a good day before the bad day to come when your ship is under attack. What have you been up to since you left Vicodin? It's been a little while. You've been traveling for some time. Making smaller jumps to kind of get closer, not wanting to spend too much time in the warp based on what happened last time you flew. What do you think Valentyne's been up to on the ship?
He's had four different priorities. One is generally getting himself back in shape. He had a busted up leg and he just got a new augmetic arm, so he needs to be at 100% whenever they get where they're going, because people keep bursting through walls and trying to murder him. So that's kind of just a given in downtime, running laps of the ship, training with Attikus, who's probably the hardest dude on board, that kind of thing. In terms of dealing with shipboard personnel, a charm offensive from a man who's not necessarily the most charming man, but he is very polite and cheerful. And I think he would, at this point, want everyone on the ship to actually give a shit about him, because shifting over from Billingburg was a lot of like, and there's the old boss, same as the new boss, and he does not want staff at that level of caring about the mission for him. He wants everybody to give a shit. And then in combination with figuring out the extent of Billingburg's operation and what he's now kind of taken ownership of, he would look into those 2 names that he'd been given. That's the thing he would really, really be hunting for, because he had 2 conspirator names given to him by Glasgow.
Mm-hmm.
The Space Marine Sandor Rafferty, and then an Aeldari whose name is something like Trin Rarky.
Yes. It's Trin Rakai, Rakai.
Perfect. Rakai, which he now corrects, having found it in the files.
Yes. Okay, great. So that makes sense. So sort of physio and recovery as you get yourself back up into shape. Charm offensive, you do find that the ship is very lightly staffed. You get the sense that Billingburg didn't want too many people knowing that he was visiting Glasgow Vicodin. That's not... the relationship between like the Lords of Terra and the Rogue Traders has always been a bit fraught, let alone the Inquisition and the Rogue Traders. So you get the sense this was meant to be a pretty incognito situation. So you've got your pilot, you have a number of servitors, and probably just like, we'll say like 2 sort of general staff. But beyond that, you get the sense that most of his operation was off ship, likely at a base somewhere else. In terms of the names, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But that is good to know. In general, how is Valentyne feeling about kind of this new phase of his quest?
Realistically excited. They've made some change. At least the Emperor isn't dying and having like Glasgow Vicodin drink out of his head and like piss all over him or whatever. So that's a step up in the right direction. The operatives have proven themselves to be useful. He never would know which of what Billingburg thinks are Billingburg's best people might not be Valentyne's opinion of the best people. So at that point, it's just moving forward. He is still weirded out by the fact that the Inquisition thinks he's dead, and that is his like core hesitancy about fully exposing himself to the traditional Inquisition. Because if they're going to turn around and call him a heretic and kill him, he's going to have to shoot somebody and try to get out of there because he has to save the Emperor, and it doesn't matter what they think of him.
Yeah. So the good news is the base you're headed towards that was in Billingburg's files is it's known as let me pull it up here. So it's the base is called Hearthold, and it is on the planet Last Gleaming. It is a backwater kind of like vaguely criminal underworldy planet that the Inquisition has a base on, but it's not where the A-listers go. Like it's not like Thracian Primaris or anything like that. It's like it's a bit more rough and tumble. It's almost like a frontier outpost. So the good news is that with kind of the criminal base that exists around, like this is the kind of like the bad part of town outpost for the Inquisition, where it's kind of like if you're desperate, go there and they'll give you guns, but like they may not have any guns because they may be using the guns on the planet kind of situation. Yeah. Which is actually good then for your current kind of objective, because if you ever needed to brush up against the Inquisition without being too overt about it, this would be the right kind of like vaguely like Mos Eisley kind of situation planet to do it on. Great. Okay, so you've been dealing with that. We'll make some rolls to see how your 3 things go. But I also want to check in with our other surviving retinue member, Attikus. Attikus, unlike Valentyne, who is haunted by some of these visions and with kind of greater purpose, your greater purpose is serving the Inquisitor and keeping him alive. And you did a damn good job of that. It was pretty dire at the end there. You didn't have the opportunity to sacrifice yourself as heroically as Marnie did. You would have. But the fact that you were able to take Billingburg out, after you discovered he was your son, sort of, not really, because of hallucinogen grenades, was a pretty important thing. And I think like for someone who's been stuck on a planet with an infinite war, kind of getting bumped around, and we talked a lot about how efficiency was kind of your jam. Feels nice to be with a team that's all about efficiency at all costs. How are you feeling? What's Attikus's vibe on aboard Marnie's song?
I mean, he's on cloud 9. He's in the Inquisition now. He serves an Inquisitor, like a fucking dream come true. Probably something he never even thought he could possibly achieve. because he was resigned and quite content to like trench warfare, frontline fighting. And so, yeah, he's probably, not probably, he definitely is like just absolutely pleased to be part of an Inquisitor's mission, and such a crucial and important one. I don't know how much Valentyne would be sharing with Attikus. I know he started to share some pieces of the puzzle with him, and certainly like the consequences of like if they fail. But for any like new developments or like bringing him into like whatever his plan is, it doesn't really matter. Attikus is here to be told, like, to do what he's told by Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne.
Valentyne would bring you in pretty much all the way. If you start to see like a beautiful new future without the Emperor, he's not going to tell you that shit because that shit's fucked up and probably a lie, and he's busy spinning his own internal propaganda around that. But the idea of like what the mission is, the dangers, how it's involved, how the Inquisition may not agree with the mission, but it's super important. Like I feel like he'd have spent a good bit of time propagandizing Attikus, specifically so if another Inquisitor shows up and is like, Valentyne is a problem, then Attikus isn't going to think about that too deeply. He wants to layer that shit over.
Yeah, and that would be prudent because like if as sort of like starstruck as he was to be pulled out of the ranks by an Inquisitor, if he's told by, say, 2 Inquisitors that Valentyne is bad, that's pretty compelling for him. So he would definitely be engaged in that kind of talk with
Valentyne would have sold this as like a secret mission from the Emperor that no other Inquisitors can know about. And they may think it's not in service of the Emperor, but we got it straight from the throne. Like just trying to play that like Emperor card as often as he can.
And that would work really well with the fact that, you know, he just actually had to take down a corrupt Inquisitor. So it's like, oh man, like he's right. This is serious, and this is coming straight from the top, and we can't necessarily trust everyone. Oh man, I sure am lucky that I wound up with Valentyne.
That's why Valentyne sleeps so good.
Love that. Okay, great. So sounds like both of you, for a brief window during which season 2 occurs, are generally pretty happy. I'll say, Ryan, for the golden future visions you've been having, they come together piece by piece over time. So at this point in your journey, you're getting glimpses of things that don't make sense, like a Space Marine Primarch election. Like that makes no fucking sense, but you keep seeing that sign and it really doesn't. It means nothing to you, but in a way that's concerning. And then gradually, piece by piece, I'm honestly thinking of like, I think it was Assassin's Creed 2. You would occasionally get like a secret glimpse of like how all the Assassin's Creed shit began. And it was like missing frames from a long movie. So you're just getting those individual frames. And then over time, those frames start to add up into something. And then slowly but surely you see, you know, these weird, verdant, lush planets with all sorts of weird shit going on. So yeah, makes sense you wouldn't tell Attikus, I think, absolutely. And also, to your credit, it's a bit of a sin by omission because you can't quite piece it together yet. But cool. Okay, so things are good on the ship then, in general. Attikus, you spend a lot of time, a lot of your downtime when you're not helping the Inquisitor recover, up in the cockpit with Grimly Dark, who you just don't trust. And he turned coat quickly enough, but he's got a fake name. He immediately just like rolled with the lie that you guys had. And though he seems like a capable pilot, as someone who like respects kind of the rule of law and order, like just a little too casual. Like his jacket's always undone, his feet are always up on the dash, like just a little too casual for your tastes. And from the jump, you haven't trusted him. So far, he's done absolutely nothing to earn that mistrust. He's just like the kind of person that I think Attikus would never really like. You've seen these flyboys before. You've seen them probably in your experience more as like officers who bought their way in or from important families. But given that you've been watching him like a hawk, you've actually picked up some piloting over time. So you're not like the world's greatest pilot, but you could absolutely handle Marnie's song if need be. Obviously, you'd have to adjust to like doing all of it one-handed because your power fist would literally destroy anything you were trying to hold.
Right.
But it's just one of those things where, like, accidentally one day Grimly's like, I gotta hit the head. Can you watch the ship? And like, you knew what to do and what to push. And so I'm gonna say, Tyler, you can go ahead and add piloting at 2 ranks to your skills.
We're gonna call that driving.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not missing it somewhere else.
No, it's a weird system. So we in-house decided piloting would just be driving.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they just assumed no one would ever be so cool as to get to fly a thing in Dark Heresy. And you know what? They might be right. Well,
it didn't turn out well last time I tried it. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'll get to drive that Titan one day. Lenny, just think of the rabbits, Lenny. So great. So you pick up a little bit of piloting in your time, and then Ryan, let's. I think in terms of physio and recovery, we're just going to give that to you. I don't think you need to roll for that. You've got like Billingburg. This is his personal craft. So as an Inquisitor who is also up to some nefarious doings, he's got good shit for fixing yourself up. Obviously, based on the kind of technology you received for your arm. Meant to be kind of a holdover until you can get to the fancy clinic to give you like the fancier augs, but for you, it's a dream. Also, just really nice that no one's tried to shoot, stab, or kill you in like the last couple weeks. It's been a real treat. In terms of the charm offensive, I will take a roll for that. What is your what do you think your tactic here is, other than just like being nice? Or is
it's lying. He always goes back to lying. So he would be trying to feel out what these 3 crew members want in an ideal kind of leader, and then becoming that person for each of them. So like if somebody really likes having the pressure put on them and that's where they perform at the top, but there's somebody who just like needs that structure, then he'll be the drill sergeant. If there's somebody who needs the like friend who cares about you, then he'll be their best friend. If he's somebody who needs that like all-knowing force of the Imperium, like an Imperial hero, then he can play that role as well. And he'll just snake like charm shift in and out of them. With a small enough crew, he can appear to be a different person with all 3 of them if he's careful.
All right, well, let's go for deception then. Right. I'm going to give this a difficulty of 4 only because there were 3 of them and we're kind of doing one roll for the overall thing. So consider this more a like, how well does this go? I'm going to give you a boost for the fact that Billingburg was an absolute twat. So anyone is kind of an upgrade from him. I was going to give you a setback because you guys took the ship by force, but I kind of feel like in the Inquisition, that's not unheard of. But yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's get a setback in there because you did kill their old boss, and I think it's the early concern of am I next needs to be overcome, and then I'll give you an additional boost for Attikus because it's generally easier to get along with the man who's being nice when there's like a giant jolly man with a power fist over his shoulder. It's like Han Solo is more charming because Chewbacca can rip your arms off. So you get to benefit from that as well. Anything else you want to make an argument for here, Ryan?
Where are we at on story points?
Yeah, so story points. We are starting fresh, my friends. It's a new day. It's a new season. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I think we're going to have 6 story points for this season. So 1 for each player plus 1 for me. And we're going to start this game off. I shit you not, 6 in your favor, none in my favor. Everything's coming up Millhouse for a little while before it doesn't come up Millhouse ever again.
I just got to check. There are only 5 of us. So we're 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm looking at the blocks. So I was literally looking at like 5 Zoom windows plus 1. But yes.
Yo, one of those fun.
I'm on 5.
I was like, does Tom have another cast member he hasn't told us about? This is a subtle reveal. I would be really into
Surprise, everybody. It's Gav Thorpe. Gav Thorpe, everybody. Come on now.
Going to be a Dark Angel.
You know what? Maybe, does it make sense to just have the 5, 1 for each of us? Maybe that does make more sense.
I don't care. 6 is fine, baby. I wasn't questioning the 6. I was questioning, am I missing someone in my brain?
5. You're a player and leading the game, so you get 2.
Yeah. It's just okay. 5 means we'll always be unbalanced. So let's go with 5 and see how that plays for a bit. Change my mind.
That's fun.
Apologies. Yeah.
I like it.
It just occurred to me that we've only ever had a balance, and it might be fun if we get to a situation where it's like, how many do we have?
Has Valentyne watched that one story point just fade into nothing?
Yeah. It's Marnie's story point.
Oh.
That's what we named the ship, Marnie's story point.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I will use a story point because I feel like he's also, he has nothing else to do. I think that's like the thing, which is every social interaction becomes a new social challenge for him. So it's his break from work is manipulating people, which I think very much speaks to him as a person.
I mean, this is also realistically your new home, right? Like, you guys have seized the ship. This is more than anything you've had to this point. Like, this is kind of, yeah.
And if these people can talk to the rest of his operation and make conversations a little easier, he doesn't know who has met Billingburg or who hasn't, or what other Billingburg assets he's got to deal with. Alrighty, let's roll. 1 failure.
Okay. You do have some difficulty, largely because everyone here is extraordinarily good at their jobs. They're so professional and detached that you're having a hell of a time getting past the basically the hospitality worker mentality of just like, every bartender's your best friend. Every front desk is just so happy to see you. Like, yeah, it's great. Of course I can clean up the hotel room you trashed. It would be my pleasure. Like, it's just that
Concierge
level
Marie is so helpful.
Yeah. It's just like you're just smashing up against a brick wall of concierges. Or Janet from Good Place if you need another parallel. It's just everyone is just too focused and polite. The failure...
Valentine's personal log that he doesn't write but thinks his head is like, well, they're very good at their jobs. It'll be a real tragedy if I have to kill them.
Well, that is where the failure comes in. One of them you do find preparing, and I think maybe this is, I guess, you could probably just, or Eugene clues you into the fact that one of them is preparing a message for transmission as soon as you're out of warp, on kind of like just a radio broadcast, because obviously there's no psychers aboard, to kind of like give the heads up of like, hey, we've got a problem. How do you execute dear sweet Janet?
Well, this is tremendously unfortunate. I feel like they're typing the message. Eugene gives him the warning, and he just goes and uses the rosette to open the door, and it opens quietly. It's a good ship, so he's just seeing them type away, and from behind them he says, "This is tremendously unfortunate. For both me, in that you seemed very good at your job, and for you, in that most people don't like to have holes in their chest." And then he's just going to run them through with his chainsword. It's going to make a mess, and he's going to apologize to the person who has to clean it up. But he's not firing a bolt gun on board a ship if he doesn't have to. He doesn't need that doing damage.
I mean, incidentally, normally it would be Janet cleaning this up. So, I mean, you've kind of saved her the work, ish. So this was not a great day aboard Marnie's Song. It was an ill note, if you will. But again, everyone is very professional. So Attikus, I think you're probably watching a little bit more closely. But I will say, given the failure on this, it's going to be harder to get the crew like fully on side. Like, they'll do what you want, but they're not going to go above and beyond for you at this point. No one's going to pull a Marnie on your behalf. Now let's talk about Billingburg's operations. So Ryan, you wanted to look into Sandor Rafferty and Trin Rakai, the Eldari. How would you go about doing this investigation? Or would you wait until you're at Last Gleaming?
No, he'd be looking into it in advance, because what he's interested in on board this ship is the stuff Billingburg has that wouldn't be in the General Inquisition files, because Billingburg is paranoid enough and running a big enough conspiracy that it's trying to put together that kind of knowledge from what he can put together.
And Attikus grabbed a bunch of notes from Vicodin's office as well. So we're going to make this a joint check then for both of you. I think for Valentyne, I suspect this is going to be I almost want to say like streetwise, but I don't know if that's right. What are you thinking, Ryan?
Streetwise is an option. We could go with Forbidden Lore if we wanted to be like diving into that.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah,
option.
I like Forbidden Lore. Let's do that. That makes the most sense. And then Attikus, what? How do you think you'd be assisting? You stole a bunch of stuff, so we can literally make this a roll to see how good the stuff you stole is.
Okay.
Or would you be helping the Inquisitor in some way, shape, or form?
This is not playing to Atticus's nearly singular strength, which is strength. So I think he would be. It's one of those things where, like, have you ever tried to help someone with something that you know you're fucking dog shit at? So you just try to help in as little an obtrusive way as possible.
Yeah.
It's literally just like, oh, you put that paper aside. Like, is that garbage? Could I take that away for you? Like, that's like, if that's the extent of it, then that's what it has to be, kind of thing. So I think it's Attikus just being acutely aware that this is not his wheelhouse, but he's been asked to help, and so he will provide all of those sort of ancillary research services. Fresh cup of whatever we drink in 40K again, fucking Beverall or whatever you like. I don't know.
Calf?
Calf, sure.
Recaf?
Yeah.
I think that might be Star Wars actually. Recaf? Sure.
Yeah. Fresh top up is recaf, that kind of thing. Whatever he needs. Yeah.
Best part of waking up is Recaf spat angrily out of an ancient machine made of recycled human waste in your cup.
Yeah.
That's how that phrase goes. Great. Okay, so then Tyler, in that case, I think we'll say that you're maybe just boosting Valentyne's role rather than making a separate role.
Okay.
For Attikus. I think makes the most sense. So Ryan, we're gonna, as we said, we're gonna call this Forbidden Lore. For difficulty perspective, I'm gonna say 3. He's paranoid, but he also didn't ever expect anyone would be on his ship.
That's the thing. If they're on there, he knows he's dead. There's like, how secure are you going to be?
Yeah. So we got that. I'm going to say you can upgrade one of your greens to a yellow for Atticus's assistance. You also aren't doing this under duress. Like this is like a montage of, the guy in the library and then like someone bringing books in and like refreshing their coffee and like,
That's me.
Exactly. Attikus is just popping in, popping out. So realistically, like you can, I think you gain like a proper advantage, not just a boost off of that. You've got the documents, so that's a boost. Okay. You're not under any time constraints, so that's neither boost nor setback. Honestly, I don't think I have much else for you on that. Is there anything you wanted to make an argument to add or subtract?
My Auspex is good, but that's for scanning the environment. That won't help with this. I do have a weird ability. Well, maybe we could. Oh no, this might matter. So we can figure out how this wants to factor in, Tom. It's called Reconstructing the Scene. So It's a 3 purple perception check for each success. I identify a prominent characteristic of an NPC who was at the scene in the last 24 hours. Further back, it's a daunting check. So I don't know if that's a way to factor into this or not.
I'll give you. What's your spread right now in green and yellow?
I have 1 green, 2 yellow.
All right, I'll let you upgrade your other green to a yellow. I think the forensic reconstruction of a scene. I think honestly, it's also like you're doing a bit of the Grand Admiral Thrawn from Star Wars thing, where it's like you're just sitting in Billingburg's quarters, being like, okay, this is the kind of guy who has a plush rug. That tells me some stuff about him. Like, oh, he has like swords in a rack over his bed. That tells me something about him. The first time you lay down on the pillow, you're like, okay, there's a bolt pistol under this pillow. Great. Like, there's just all those sort of social cues, which in turn, I think would give you some insight into like, is his password going to be numeric? Is it going to be the name of his long dead dog? Like, what's the password?
Alrighty, so we are 3 yellow, 3 purple, and a blue.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's roll. 3 successes.
Hey, very good. Okay, so over time, you discover a few things. The first, which I think plays into season 2 pretty nicely, is your discovery of the tomb ships and the what's known as the Abakai network. You don't have full access to this. You don't have full information on it. It's almost like when you open a file folder and it's like, here are the recent files you opened. But you currently have 4 different tomb ships listed. Each one has a point of contact known as Attikus. For your mission, you identified Attikus 003 as the one to activate. From the sounds of his records, like you don't have a full. It's not like you have the full history of what these things are, but it would seem that they're one of the ways that Billingburg has spread his influence to far distant reaches of the Imperium. Obviously, travel takes time and is obvious, so being able to just activate these cells at distance to kind of carry out his will is a remarkable overreach to your eye for an Inquisitor to have remote retinues that are completely out from under the thumb is concerning. And I think you experienced that when talking to Seth and Sister Mina and Piper and Nero. Like the fact that they were so loyal but also had no idea who you were and that didn't matter is kind of a scary prospect, I think, from an inquisitorial organization standpoint, which is just like, this is an Inquisitor who's gone a few steps too far. His files reveal generations of connections. As Attikus can tell you, he talked about how he killed his father. He is the 13th. He comes from a genetic line of Inquisitors, both matrilineal and patrilineal Inquisitors kind of down through the ages. And it would seem that a lot of these agents aren't necessarily people he's even met, but generations past connections playing out. And kind of like a massive, you get the sense that even though you have access to some, but not all, of an incredible web of connections and favors and debts and blackmail and ownership over such things. How can you, Ryan, roll me a real quick 2 purple scholastic lore? Specifically, I'm looking for your knowledge of Xenos. Attikus, I don't think you could help with this because this is beyond your thing.
God, if it was about orcs, Marnie would be so helpful.
Freshen your drink, sir.
2 successes. Why, yes, Attikus, I'm making a surprising amount of progress considering this is in no way my specialty.
No mind, sir.
You were somewhat taken aback, Valentyne, by the designation tomb ships. This is very much a Necron term, and though this seems to be a fully Imperial machine, it's incredibly strange to you that Billingburg would do it. You've heard of Inquisitors kind of like overstepping before. It's actually very common, but this is truly bizarre to you. So you discover that, and you have access to 4, one of which you activate in order to deal with the threat of the new men. The other piece you get is around the names that you've received so far. There isn't a lot of information. Vicodin gave you the names he had. But you get the sense that there's a lot of there's a cell mentality to this, right? Like they don't want to give everyone all the information because then if any of them get, blown apart by an Inquisitor and waste their dying words ratting out their friends to get one last sip of the pure, you don't really want them to be able to blow the lid off the whole thing. So you learn that Vicodin's role was to provide funds to again hire a large number of mercenaries. There was some concern about Vicodin in Billingburg's notes as well. Billingburg was sent specifically to keep him on side. But given that Vicodin is new money, there was a lot of concern with the other Confederates that he might be a bit of a wild card. He wasn't particularly liked. He was liked slightly more than Fabius Bile, who was their other option, but only slightly, because the general notes on Bile and the new men were, if Vicodin fails in any way or goes rogue or anything else, like Fabius Bile can show up with fewer people that he obviously has, but he will have an agenda. And then it's very much a wolf in the henhouse situation for the Confederates, who are like, we're trying to overthrow the Emperor of Man. We don't need a guy with a big agenda that isn't that in here, but worst case scenario, we'll use him. In the files, you learn that you get the sense that Billingburg's role in the conspiracy was asset acquisition, which makes sense given his kind of web of connections you're starting to see. If there were any elements that were needed, it was his job to figure out how to bring them in, whether that was someone like Vicodin, who'd be brought in at the highest level under the promise of being able to drink the Emperor's skull, or whether it was contingencies like Fabius Bile, or interestingly, Trin Rakai, the Eldari. The record on Trin is sparse. Billingburg has redacted most of it. However, you do have bits and pieces that seem to suggest an Eldari defector who needs to be extracted from an Ultramarine purge. And apparently an asset known as Abigail was used to extract the Eldari, who is now somewhere in the Imperium, deep in the Imperium. So you know there's an Eldar in the henhouse as well, and one that theoretically no longer exists, because when the Ultramarines decide to end a thing, they'll do it so heroically and boringly that surely the assumption would be that all Eldari on that planet are dead. So one that happened to slip out during that action wouldn't be missed. So that's what you get from Billingburg stuff, as well as the location of the Twilight Sector and the Last Gleaming Base. It's the only habitable world in the sector, and it gives you a place to start, which is nice. So that's what you get. Is there anything you and Attikus would want to discuss around those learnings?
Attikus would want to know our destination. He'd be approaching you saying,
What's our heading, sir?
Well, it appears based on what we found, we're going to this Twilight Sector base. Correct, Tom? That was what we're talking about, where we're heading? Yeah. It's an out-of-the-way inquisitorial outpost. Here's the deal. I haven't found a tremendous amount of useful information. I found a lot of peripheral gleanings around our opponents. I need to know more about Sandor Rafferty. There's nothing here, but I assume that he's a loyalist. Can I remember what any of the pauldron art or color that was on Sandor Rafferty or anything from my visions?
So Sandor Rafferty, you do find one quick note on him, and it seems that he and Billingburg were at odds. They didn't get along particularly well. Rafferty is his armor looked to you very badly damaged in your visions. Unfortunately, everything's got a bit of that Vaseline like flashback in a soap opera blur to it. But it almost to you, it almost looked like his armor had been heavily slashed up. But you saw a lot of reds and oranges in it, but it's not entirely clear. It's definitely not a name you've heard. And you would know the heads of the major chapters just colloquially, and you've never heard of this guy. As you know, like, one of the weird facets of Space Marine chapters is they all end up with these subchapters and subchapters and subchapters, and as a result, there can be any myriad of variation that you may not have heard of. It does bring you some comfort that it's not like one of the big names. Like, you don't have to worry that it's like, oh no, I guess we're fighting the Blood Angels now. It's actually a little bit odd to you that you have absolutely no idea who this man is, because you would assume that a Marine involved in something like this would have to be a big deal.
So normally I would assume that in my visions I would be able to recognize some piece of heraldry or something else that would allow me to track which chapter or successor chapter that Sandor is from. Instead, I have nothing, which is tremendously bothersome, other than the name of a Marine who is not terribly important because I don't know it, and at the same time is tremendously important because he's trying to overthrow the Emperor and he's a Marine, which is a nightmare 10,000 years in the making. So I need to find out about him and Trin, this other Eldari. Apparently it was part of an Ultramarine purge. I'm assuming is still alive because is part of this. question mark. I don't know why they were being purged, and I would very much like to know that. So I need information on those two. And the Twilight Sector base appears to be our best chance.
Right. Well, I mean, forgive me, sir, but can't you just dream more?
That is a fair question. Unfortunately, I'm not in charge of exactly how much dreaming I get to do. That is for the holiest on the throne. He gives me the pieces that apparently you and I need, and no more. Thank him so much. Thank you. Always the best. No criticisms down here.
Oh, yes,
Always
yes.
gifts.
Thank you, Lord Emperor. Yes, you've given us only as much as we need to serve your will. Yes. So then, off to Twilight Sector base then, and the answers will reveal themselves, I suppose.
That would be the hope. The Emperor's given us Twilight Sector base, where we hope to find answers, and 3 more tomb ships, apparently, full of agents who hopefully will allow us to carry out the missions we need to.
Do you trust them, sir? I mean, they're Billingburg agents. They might be corrupt like him.
The only person that I trust in this galaxy right now is you.
Ooh. Just Attikus just grows 3 inches taller. Just
mustache
hearing
curls a
those
little
words.
bit more
Yeah.
dramatically.
Yeah.
It truly is you and I against the galaxy right now, Attikus. We will use the tools that we have, and these are tools. But we will protect each other and we will protect the Emperor.
Very good, sir. Wouldn't have it any other way.
And so you spend your days reading, studying, searching, training, until the day, Valentyne, that you are awoken to explosions as 2 separate attack squadrons rush Marnie's song. As Grimly Dark's voice cuts out over your Vox, the sort of ship-wide intercom Vox, a new voice kind of crackles through, and you just hear, "This is a message for the hateful traitor Barthus Billingburg. You have been deemed hereticus, and I will bring you in. Me and my witch hunters will not stop until you have been brought before inquisitorial justice. Prepare to be boarded." At which point his voice cuts off, and we hear, "Right then, you're gonna have to take a little break there, bud. Because if anyone's bringing him in for that bounty, it's gonna be me, Maximus Conatus." At which point, your engines blow, and Marnie's song is ripped, screaming from warp. And as your ship drifts, Valentyne, you begin to rush towards the bridge, seeing 2 separate attack squadrons moving in, apparently with the intent to board. Bounty posting. The hateful traitor Barthus Billingburg XIII has been declared hereticus by the Inquisition. Under the will of his holy lord, the Emperor, we demand that this heretic be brought in for justice. Alive, preferably. Dead, possibly. Either way, he must face our wrath. Barthus Billingburg met a fate quite fitting to his conspiratorial ways and his general demeanor, as you've learned from now talking to his crew, and also Attikus from your brief conversation with him. But unfortunately, famed bounty hunter Maximus Conatus doesn't know that, nor does the fanatical witch hunter Davian Mutus, both of whom have descended upon Marnie's song, which is flying under a code in their various computers of the Emerald Fire, Barthus Billingburg's personal vessel. And they are on a holy mission, one for thrones and one for belief, for duty. And unfortunately, you guys are in the crosshairs of this. So Valentyne, I've cut you off now with a full episode of backstory before we find out what happens when you reach the bridge. What is your reaction as you kind of hear this boarding call from the witch hunter and the bounty hunter as you run toward the bridge?
Well, chug me. This is going to be a bit of a problem. I'm going to need to be posted through on the... Can anyone hear me? I'm trying to use the friggin' Vox.
You get nothing but static. It would seem that one of the two ships that's attempting to board you is overriding comms to your ship.
Fabulous. He's just going to get to the bridge then.
Great. So you storm the bridge. You burst in to find Grimly actually doing his fucking job for once, sitting forward, fully active. Attikus, you're up there with him. You've had a couple minutes to prepare because you weren't having a weird nightmare of a beautiful golden future that perhaps humanity could have if only they would, change their ways. What are you doing aboard the bridge, do you think, during this early time of crisis?
Preparing to be boarded. And depending on how Valentyne wants to take this, that is pretending to defend us from borders or preparing to allow Inquisition, or not Inquisition, but to allow Imperial forces onto the ship to prove that we're innocent, to prove that there is no Barthus Billingburg. So he'd be readying his repulsor shield and things like that. He'd basically be getting his gear ready to go.
Great. So yeah, as you enter, then Grimly says, Inquisitor, great. Thanks for making it down here so quick. Look, we've got two signatures coming in. One is Inquisition. One seems to be a bounty hunter rogue element. We've got signatures. Mutus. He's flying the flag of Ordo Hereticus. We've got a bounty hunter. Unfortunately, I did a quick check, and he's ranked pretty damn high. So. Yeah, I think it's going to get a bit hairy. Also, our engines are dead, so we're adrift. And then he just kind of like shrugs slowly to the sky with the rage of, a pilot astropath who really has nothing else he can do.
Shall I prepare to repel all boarders, sir, or shall I get 2 more cups of recaf?
Let's hold position here, assume borders, hope for the recap. Grimly, I have 2 questions for you. One, do you have a copy of any genetic material of Barthus Billingburg on board? Do you have any cloned limbs, cloned eyeballs, just anything that's him?
He just like full on face palms and just says, no, we jettisoned the rest of his waste a few systems back when we were just trying to lighten the ship, and unfortunately, as you saw, all the tech bays are just replacement parts. All the clone bits he's got back on his base on Last Gleaming.
All right, so there's a place where we could theoretically find that.
If we can get there, they've absolutely got a record of him.
Do you have a way to put me through to the Inquisition ship using this Rosette's code? And he will present the Rosette that he has that was given to him by Wilhelm Roach.
He does that like Harrison Ford determining whether or not to make a bad idea, like chin rub. He says, okay. I can try and do that. Look, according to these signatures, they're both going to reach us in roughly the same amount of time. If you want to talk to the Inquisition guys, why don't I blast the repulsors, drift us a bit closer to the bounty hunters, and then that way when if they come knocking, I assume you don't feel too bad splattering them, right?
You're correct. I owe them absolutely nothing. Fellow Inquisitors, frankly, I didn't care for Billingburg either. I don't disagree with the decision. So
he punches the repulsors, and it's not like a dramatic thing. It just like blasts, small repulsors, and the ship starts drifting closer towards Maximus Contus, and then he'll jam the Rosette into the. I assume like, Rosettes, if I'm not mistaken, Rosettes do actually have a.
Like a data spike equivalent.
Yeah, they're able to spike it.
They're super useful.
Great. Yeah. So he'll spike that in. Trying to figure out what the role this is going to be though, because this is tough because it's an NPC. We'll just say he's able to get the comms. He starts to get the comm channels going. He has to cycle a few times. Billingburg wasn't a particularly chatty sumbitch when it came to other ships, so we'll say it's going to take him a full round to do that, and then Ryan will use Valentyne's stats for the actual conversation once it cycles through. But Maximus Contus's troops will be on board before then. So Attikus, where do you want to go to repel these? I assume I
go to the rear of the ship, where we came on.
Great, fantastic. So you move into the rear of the ship. It is kind of like that sort of classic cargo hold meets drop ramp. There are a couple of EVA suits sort of on rack, but you imagine most. I feel like Attikus, you're not really a space going guy. But you hear the heavy, like magnetic thump of the boarding clamp. So you know they're not going to like float on over and try and like torch through. They very much clamped onto it, and you can see that classic like arc burner start tearing a massive circular hole. So you have a moment to prepare, sort of Star Wars style, as the stormtroopers try and cut through the door. In this bay with you, there's a couple of EVA suits hanging near the door. There are some crates of just kind of general supplies and provisions for the ship. The munitions crates and things aren't just like out and about. This would be food, additional clothes, bedding, mostly I'd say probably food and sort of like various mechanical parts for repairs. The ship is built for warp, as you know, because you've been in it. But it's not meant to like it'll get you there, but it's almost meant for jumps, not for like long haul stuff. So there's certainly a lot of places you could take cover around here. I think there's also probably a loading arm to get these things on and off that you would know how to operate. So you have a moment to prepare yourself and kind of get into position. Where do you go?
I would try to use the loading arm to move as many boxes between their breach and Valentyne in the cockpit.
Oh, okay. So sealing yourself in.
I'm just gonna like make a wall. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. The old Rorschach, like you're in here with me.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead with. I think we'll call that tech use.
Intellect. All right.
Yeah. But I would give you coordination. I doubt that's any better.
Coordination, agility, same number.
Yeah, sorry, it's not like a love tester or a strongman
no,
like
that's fine.
carnival game.
Oh, no.
I should have been.
Can I dig the bell hard enough? Like
I should have been the arm to move it myself, but we're using this thing. So
all right, cool.
All right,
so let's
I
go ahead
got my
with that.
2 greens.
Great. I'm going to give you a boost just because you would have had enough time to learn how to use this on your own.
Okay.
I think the key here is that it's not a matter of whether or not you can use this. It's whether or not you can use it adeptly enough to do everything you want to do in the amount of time you have.
Yeah.
Do
it under pressure, do it quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So boost for that. I'm not going to give you a setback for this only because I'm sorry, I should give you a difficulty. We're going to make this a difficulty 3.
Okay.
Because like moving a couple crates, absolutely no problem. Building enough that it's actually going to be a problem for people getting by in this amount of time, harder. Because you're basically going to have to like knock crates in. This is a real like,
Yeah,
you get it. So I'm not going to give you any setbacks because the setback is the difference, like having to roll for this at all.
right. Okay.
So that's all fine. I'm also, this is kind of dumb, but I like it. I'm going to give you a boost because you are good at mechanical arms. For some people, the logic of this would be hard, but I think in your head it's kind of like, right, it's just a bigger version of what I do. Like it's not that much of a stretch. So yeah, I'll give you a boost for just being familiar with the physics involved.
Okay.
And I think that's it for me. Currently for story points, we're sitting at 4-1 in your favor.
Let's just roll the dice as they are here.
All right.
2 successes, 1 threat.
Okay, great. So with a mighty sweep, you sort of like quickly toggle the joystick, and you basically grab the biggest crate you can, and you use that to just smash a stack over in front of the door. So blocks off the entryway into sort of the main ship. For the threat, I'm just going to pass that off to the boarding team, because the time it takes you to do all of that means you're standing at the controls. You're not taking cover or diving for anything.
Yeah.
Cool. So that brings us to the boarding team then. With a massive shower of sparks and an eruption, the sort of large metal circle that's been cut gets blasted through, and it hits the ground, and just like you feel your skull rattle as this huge, thick chunk of metal just slams down and echoes through the small hold. Smoke pours through as the boarding party bounty hunters start to make their way in. They're going to open fire. There's only 3 coming through the breach right now because it's small enough that it would take them too long to cut a big one. So it's kind of like 3 guys diving through a manhole. So this is going to be arranged. What is your defense, sir?
1.
Okay, so that's 1 setback for them. And they are... Okay. And then in terms of other things that are going on here, I'm going to give them an additional... So they're getting a boost from your threat, but I'm also going to give them additional setback because they don't know who's in here. They just know that they assumed people would be in here, but I think it's kind of... I know I keep leaning on Star Wars, but that's usually where my brain goes for space engagements. Yeah. Where it's like the Stormtrooper thing where they just come in shooting wildly because they're like, there's probably people. Anything I hit is good on the other side of this. I just don't, they're not coming in being like, I hit the guy at the controls.
Yeah.
You just happen to be stationary. Okay, so that's that. And do they get any? They don't get anything else cool because they kind of suck. Shh, don't tell anyone. Okay, I think that's it. So let's go ahead with the roll. Ooh, wow. 4 successes, 3 threats. So Attikus, unfortunately, as they open fire with their hand cannons, 1 dings you in against just because, in order to finish the movement, you're not able to duck. That is not ideal. So that is 13 points of damage.
Okay.
What is you've got damage reduction though, I imagine.
I've got soak of 3.
Soak of 3? Okay.
It'll be, Tyler, we figured this out. Your soak's higher than that because it's your armor soak plus your brawn.
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, much different.
That was why everybody died real easy in season 1 and didn't die quite as much in season 2. Also, there's a lot more courtly intrigue.
Okay. That puts my soak at 9.
Great. Yeah, that makes more sense to me, I think, in terms of Attikus getting hit and not just turning to red mist. So yeah, the bolt hits you. It sucks, but you're used to it.
Yep.
And you are able then with 3 threat. That is, how am I going to spend that? I'm going to give you. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say. So, how much damage was it again? My brain's just trying to track.
13.
This. Yeah, shit, nice.
Yeah. So shrug off all but 4. And then in terms of the threat, Tyler, I'm going to give you 2 boost. I think from them, and I'm going to say one of them gets stuck in the breach, so none of them are able to. The rest are still trying to get through, but it's just an awkward stumble.
Okay.
So one guy is just yelling.
Toka getting stuck in the manhole.
Yeah. I mean, my first thought was Winnie the Pooh, just oh bother. So yeah, there's one guy just in a big heavy suit who gets stuck in the breach, and you just hear someone from behind yell, "God damn it, Leroy!" And it means
he's got chicken.
It means you only have three active combatants in the next round. Meanwhile, having not been breached in the rest of the ship, specifically the bridge, Valentyne grimly kind of turns and gives you a thumbs up as as your rosette cycles through, and there's kind of a hiss, and you just hear, "Billingburg! No time for negotiations, old chum. I'm afraid your die has already been cast. Soon the grip of the Inquisition will be around your treacherous throat, you dog."
And I'm tremendously sorry, but this is Interrogator Lucius Valentyne on
Wait,
orders.
The fuck?
On orders of Inquisitor Wilhelm Roach. If you check the rosette, you'll see that I have been sent here by my master. He is on special operation and cannot be reached. I have killed Billingburg. I am taking over his operation to purge them, and right now I'm about to be killed by bounty hunters. Help another fellow Hereticus interrogator. Help me stop these bounty hunters, and we can destroy Billingburg's empire.
Well, shit. Listen, I must say, Interrogator Valentyne, this is somewhat unexpected, and yet you find yourself aboard the Emerald Fire. How do I know you're not another one of Billingburg's lapdogs? You could have taken this rosette from an Inquisitor you killed in the field. I would expect no less from a traitor like you.
Let's go to the rolls. You get the sense, Valentyne, that Mutus isn't it's not that he doesn't believe you, but also the known fact about Billingburg is that he has a bunch of sleeper cells of people around the galaxy. So there are some questions here. Yeah. How do you want to try and play this?
He's just gonna lie through his teeth and play that Wilhelm Roach is incredibly important and that he will answer all questions after this is over, but Wilhelm Roach is one of the most important Hereticus Inquisitors in this sector. He will answer all of your questions after this is done. If I survive this day, if I do not, you will have made a grand enemy and destroyed me, the most knowledgeable person about the confederacy of traitors working alongside Billingburg, who I am looking to bring down.
Devian Mutus does not destroy a fellow Inquisitor. He helps them unless they're treacherous dogs like Billingburg with his accursed Xenos tech. Fine. I will consider this. You said Roach. Go ahead and roll there, Ryan. We're going to say this is I'm going to say difficulty 3. He's highly suspicious of everyone, and he's a fanatic. So,
admittedly, right now, Valentyne has a bold lie and the correct password going for him.
Yeah, but it is also very surprising. He literally was hoping for his we meet again for the first time for the last, and it's he's really on his back foot. He he got all excited for some witch burning, and now he's just got to have a conversation. Difficulty 3. You get a boost for the rosette. I'm gonna give you a boost for being of the same Ordos. I think Mutus would actually have a real problem unless someone has distinctly said Lucius Valentyne is a heretic. Then he'd be like, fuck yeah, let's get him.
Oh yeah.
But till then, that doesn't sound it's not entirely kosher. You get a setback because you're on Billingburg's ship / just the Billingburginess of all of this. And I'm going to spend a story point to jack the difficulty by one red, just because this is a highly dramatic moment. And
Valentyne, I'm going to spend a story point as well because he is desperate to get this negotiation done to not lose Attikus. Simultaneously, because Attikus is a good servant of the throne, and also because his best chance of being able to survive an eventual but likely fight with this witch hunter is having Attikus around.
Yeah, man, I get it. Precious cargo. Okay. So with that in mind, anything anyone else wants to argue for, or are we good? All right, let's kick it.
All right, let's see. 4 successes to advantage.
He considers, he says, Roach, hey, Wilhelm Roach. Yes, I've seen his name in the files. I don't believe he's as impressive as you say, but it has been a while since I've done any proper reading. Inquisitor, pardon me, Interrogator Valentyne. It would seem we are at similar purposes. Honestly, I'm a little discombobulated by this whole thing. Yes, the bounty hunter situation is a problem. I do not care for these mercenary scum any more than you do. I will keep the rest of their contingent from landing upon your craft, but you will have to deal with the invaders yourself. Deal?
Agreed. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Indeed, we have an accord. Praise the Emperor and burn the heretic.
The Emperor protects, death to evil.
Oh, I like you. And then he clicks off. All right. So, having as this kind of occurs, you see the witch hunter craft basically intercept the other two bounty hunter ships, and just like plow between them, opening fire. So you'll only have the one boarding craft, which is good. And more importantly, the biggest of the three, like it would seem Maximus Contus is like flagship is a very strong term for how small these ships are, but like the big ship isn't in play anymore. So you have one landing vessel. You can think of those almost as like drop ships. So like it's just there to drop like a squad of 6 to 8 with a pilot and a gunner. But the bigger ship, the bigger threat is now temporarily neutralized. From the Grimly is as soon as that conversation is done, all of a sudden the scrambling lifts from your channels. That's very much a Mutus thing, not a Contus thing. And Grimly is able to kind of get a rough feed from kind of like a shitty, grainy 40K security camera on the cargo hold, where you see Attikus under heavy fire, but also moving quickly into cover, because now that he's successfully moved the things with the crane, he's able to duck behind a shield and move. You're kind of stuck now because he's barricaded himself in. Is there anything you would want to do, Valentyne, before we cut back to Attikus?
Find me the frequency of that landing craft. Whoever is boarding us, I want to speak with their pilot.
Yeah, all right. And he begins to cycle through those. Meanwhile, back in the hold, Attikus, you've managed to, having taken a hit, you managed to kind of get out away from the crane operation. You have two bounty hunters who have moved in and are kind of like rapidly running for cover. You can think of these guys as basically wearing like smaller versions of the Juggernaut's helmet from X-Men. So just like a shoulder to top of head, like slope thing. It's got like a big top knot ponytail blowing behind, and very kind of like squat heavy armor, almost like a He-Man style, like metal suits. They're bulky, hence the man stuck in the door. But they're quick. They're not, they're very, they're clearly very athletic. And two of them are running for cover. They boarded with their sort of pistols out. Now that they're starting to take cover, one of them's pulling out a shotgun, and one of them is pulling out a rifle. And they're kind of trying to set up almost a covering like kill zone so that the rest of their friends can get through. What do you do?
Goodness. Well, from what you described, it doesn't sound like they have hazardous environment suits for, like, say, the crushing cold darkness of space.
Oh, they certainly do not, sir. No.
Let's open the doors then.
Okay.
I just power fist into the floor. Just my fingers dig into the floor, and with my flesh hand, I just smash the button on the side of the hall to breach the doors.
I mean, I don't need a roll for that. I think that just happens. So there's immediately just a complete lack of sound, almost a deadening thunk as the door blasts, and you can just see in the sort of moment before vacuum hits the look of shock and betrayal on the faces of these two bounty hunters. Just at like how they're so used to bounties just doing anything to survive, to be taken in alive, that like the fact that you're doing this is completely just like beyond the pale. You hear a horrible grinding crunch, and above you, you actually like, so the door opens, the back ramp opens, and we'll say it's like the cargo. It's not like put the ramp down. It's like you blow the cargo chute. The crates begin to fly past you, so we'll roll for that in a sec. These two assholes are sucked out immediately. Unfortunately, the ceiling above you crunches inward as the boarding craft, which is now swung up and over, basically just slams into the top of the ship, causing just a bunch of alarm klaxons to go off. But you can't hear them because there's the vacuum of all the air in the room being sucked out around you. So let's roll to see how you hold on with your big ol' arm as everything is sucked out into space, and the crates that you so artfully smashed into a door come back for vengeance. This is going to be a difficulty 4 on my end. There's a lot going on. Those crates are a real problem. If it's just holding on, that's one thing. The other problem is, well, we'll deal with that problem in a second. First, let's deal with the crates flying past you. So that's 4. I'm going to go ahead and say this is a proper punchy boy skill. So I'm willing to give you your melee on this, since this is just like hanging on tight. That's something you know how to do.
Very good. You provided me with 2 boost dice last time. Do they still apply to this scenario now that I've changed it, or?
Yep. No, they're to your next roll. So that'll be, because they represent the narrative flow of story, not any specific like, he got cover. Good work. We have a different game for that. It's called D&D. So hanging on tight. That's fine. Stuff is flying past you. What is your brawn, sir?
6.
6. Okay. So the good news is you have 6 rounds of being able to hold your breath in vacuum.
I have respirator lungs, so I can hold my breath 3 times longer than that.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. You will take damage from being exposed to the cold vacuum of space, but that's fucking great.
Yeah.
So let's deal with the boxes, and then we'll see what else happens. In terms of story point spread, we're currently matched at 4-1 in your favor.
I'll be using a story point for this roll.
Yep, that makes sense to me. Yeah, I'm going to use one too, because dramatics. You killed my sweet juggernaut, boys, so I must have my pound of flesh. In terms of other things, I am going to give you a setback for just the cold vacuum of space. Like, even with the respirator lungs, it's a damn unpleasant sensation to have all that air whipping past you. So it's just a bit distracting. I think that's it. Anyone want to make an argument for anything else before we roll? All right.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I can't think of anything on this one.
Here we go.
Five successes, 1 triumph.
Smashy boy.
You become space. You are now Galactus. All right. So the crates get pulled down, and you're able to very easily just like cliffhanger, slide yourself around. One of them bashes off your arm, but like, that ain't no thing. So the crates go flying past. I was going to make you roll some survival shit, but with the triumph, I think I'm going to say, if you want, you could spend that to try and close the door. There's still a hole in it, and the landing craft is still attached to it. So I don't know how beneficial that is to you, but if you have another argument for how you want to spend that triumph, I am all ears.
For the boarding party, they cut a hole in the ceiling, and one guy was or is stuck there. Is he coming directly from the ship that he was on? So okay,
yeah, they have one of those little like boarding. It's not a soft umbilical, but it's like a hard. I think like almost like a Mario pipe that just like slams on that they can then power cut through.
Okay.
So that thing is still attached to the door. The guy who's stuck in it is very likely dead from exposure. So people behind him are likely still alive and or scrambling for,
I was going to say, I might spend the triumph.
Far away.
Right. I might spend the triumph to have him actually sucked completely free from the hole, and so that vacuum environment spreads to the boarding ship as well.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So he's we'll say he's reaching through, and as one of his friends gets sucked past, they do the like give me your hand thing, and he grabs them. Unfortunately, they pull him with them, and the two of them holding hands spin off into the cold depths of space. Perfect metaphor for the value of friendship in the grim darkness of the future, where there is only war. Okay, so you've successfully dealt with the boarding party and to some extent the ship. However, you are in vacuum. That said, I feel like with the assistance of Mutus, things are definitely swinging in your favor. Back in the cockpit, Valentyne, what did you want to say to the boarding party?
I mean, they're all fucking dead, so there's no point in negotiating with them at this point. So he just says, damn, oh, hang it up. I don't need to speak to them. And he hits a button for the internal comms, and he's just like, Concierge Marie, I need you to go out in an EVA suit and bring Attikus back in from the cold void of space. Otherwise, you could just join him out there forever. And he'll just hang up that comm.
So I mentioned before, due to your failure, that people would be less inclined to do what you want. That said, Concierge Marie saw what happened to Janet, and she is not having that shit happen to her. She had to clean that up, and it was a mess. So she'll go for Attikus. I think with Davian's assistance, Maximus Contis pulls off. That one landing craft is obviously like a loss. Is written off as a loss, but Mutus and his witch hunter team kind of blasted off, and then kind of. One of them probably uses their boarding thing to seal the breach, and you're able to bring Attikus back in. Attikus, I am going to give you 3 points of damage that will ignore your soak just from vacuum exposure.
Yeah, I think Attikus, depending on the trajectory of the ship, his skin was badly burned and boiling a little bit, and then frozen, and then thawed again, just from the sun, just literally passing by, kind of thing.
I got some good news for you, sir. There is no visible sun in this sector.
Oh, sweet. So then just ice, baby.
Yep.
I think Valentyne, if you're looking at a vid screen of the cargo bay, it's just Attikus floating with one hand, his very, very strong robot hand sunk into the floor, and with his free flesh hand, he's actually just holding his glasses to his face with one finger, just pushing the glasses up the bridge of his nose, with just big goldfish bubble cheeks, holding his breath, and he's kind of has a passive expression on his face, he's just waiting to make sure they're all completely flushed, he doesn't look like he's worried.
All right, well, it looks like he's doing all right. Grim, how long will it take us to get this ship functional for travel again, or is that not possible?
I mean, it would have been shorter until that other ship dented us. But it sounds like you're kind of buddy with the other Inquisitor. Maybe they can give us a tow. Honestly, that'll probably help us get planetside anyway. It's not far, and he just kind of shows you on a chart that you're in. You did make it to the Twilight sector. It's just Last Gleaming is a little bit of a ways away.
Excellent. Well, then we can do that. Knowing you seem like, shall we say, a shady fellow in the most respectable way.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Undoubtedly, you've been paid out of a certain number of accounts that have come from Barthus Billingburg that I now have access to, but don't know where to find in his myriad holdings. If you can point out where those accounts are, I can check their balances and perhaps use it to repair this ship, make things better, maybe hire a group of bounty hunters, and I can give you a percentage.
I mean, that sounds great, Chief, but I got to tell you, he did all that before we got on board. He made sure I didn't have access to any of that. And then he kind of gestures to himself, for obvious reasons. Obviously, I would have skimmed, as you indicate. But look, we departed from Last Gleaming. I know he had contacts on planet. He's probably got quarters on planet. And he doesn't strike me as the kind of fella who carried his keys around with him. So I'm sure if you toss your rooms, Inquisitor, there's got to be something there. And I mean, even if he's been declared hereticus, when you show up and say, hey, I iced the guy, they should give you his stuff, right? I can help you sort through once you have it. I just can't do anything from the ship.
I can appreciate that. And luckily I have tossed those quarters, so I have a collection of everything that would be necessary. All right, then I guess we wait this one out and try to get a tow from the Inquisition.
Well, I've delivered stranger messages. Just
turns the rosette and he's like, hey, hi. And sure enough, within minutes, the Mutus's craft and his kind of escorts hitch themselves to the Marnie's song and begin dragging you towards Last Gleaming.
As Attikus discovered, in this sector there is no visible sun. There is instead just a weird dark smudge in the sky, through which no stars are visible. And as you kind of make your way towards Last Gleaming, you recognize that it was a sun at some point, but now it's just kind of a dark mass, almost like dark clouds. You can occasionally see sort of blasts of lightning amidst them. But as you do the flyby, Valentyne, you're able to observe that there seems to be a mechanical structure, almost a web built around it. And every so often, you see various quadrants of this web, sort of nebulas around the web, light up and just blast what looks almost like plasma fire into this dark sun, keeping it at bay. Is this something you'd ask Grimly about, or something you'd wait to ask the Inquisition about? Oh, you can actually you could also talk Mutus. Mutus is like, he's on a ship doing his own thing, but like you do have open comms.
Yeah, I probably would ask Mutus then, as long as, I mean, Attikus, I imagine, has been recovered and is...
Yeah, so
right.
Attikus, you're in the med bay. I think with better medical assistance to come, it's like, weirdly, the ship is better at limbs cut off than like deep space exposure, but you're a happy boy. You killed a bunch of raiders.
Looks like a thumb to his nostril. There's like a big farmer blow of like blood and snot out of his head. Just kind of wipes it with his forearm.
Yeah, and Concierge Marie will just like wrap your head in bandages and like leave space for your glasses. So you've got like, soothing ointments and stuff on you. But otherwise you're pretty good. All things considered.
Wrapping his head, and he's like, "Thanks." That's it.
And she just kind of nods in like a really scared of you way, and then just slowly with slightly trembling hand puts a cup of recaf down by you and makes her leave.
Yeah, I'll pick that up. Keep warm. A little warm cup of Joe. Yeah.
Yes. Valentyne, you're put through to David Mutus, who greets you much more. He's still a little on edge. Like there's still, the story doesn't fully add up. But he says, "Oh yes, Interrogator Valentyne. To what do I owe this communication? Is there an issue with the tow?"
No, the tow seems to be going excellently. I was wondering, based on some of the strange behavior I'm seeing out of these mechanical structures, if there's anything I should be concerned about. I'm someone who, one could say, dives in to slaughter heretics and move on their allies without, one could say, doing full scientific surveys of the area.
Very good. Yes, of course. You speak of the Heretic Sun. This was once a hotbed of chaotic power. The great enemy saw fit to invade our glorious Imperium through some kind of rift they managed to make in the center of this accursed star. Luckily, the forces of the Imperium moved quickly, and though this sector was sadly lost, we did manage to contain, seal, and drive back the foe. What you see currently is a means of maintenance or housekeeping, if you will, just to make sure that no enterprising demons ever fight their way back through.
Excellent. Truly, the work of the Emperor has been done here and will be done on an ongoing basis.
Truly, on an ongoing basis, praise him.
Ave Imperator.
Ave Imperator, Interrogator. And he cuts his mic. And honestly, Valentyne, I think like this is one of those kind of rare, weird moments in 40K where like it's an unfamiliar tech. It seems to be working neat. Quote with John Oliver, cool. But you see it kind of continuing to blast at this dead sun, and you move on to Last Gleaming, a hive world that seemingly was once a throne world. As you make your approach, you can see the remnants throughout the hive of massive, kind of like early imperial structures. Like this is some not quite golden age, but like pretty close era architecture. But everything has been the hive has been built up and out of that. As you kind of come in under low orbit. You can see that a lot of the buildings have been repurposed. However, one palace still stands above the hive, and you can see that the hive has been built kind of in like very classic hive terms, has clearly been built out of this castle. So this one remaining castle is the epicenter of the hive, and everything around it kind of slopes down and out. It's identified kind of on your scans as Hearthold, the base of operations of the Inquisition in the sector, home perhaps to some answers about Barthus Billingburg, about his confederates, and perhaps more importantly for you, Valentyne, perhaps a place to get a few answers about the body they said they recovered with your name, about the general state of the Inquisition since you've been gone, and also a chance to re-equip and kind of reload as you enter this new era of your heresy and your crusade, unaware that several layers down beneath you as you fly over in a humble bar, the next two members of your retinue were having a generally unpleasant evening. Xenos Amendum to After Action Report, Planet Vicodin. Perhaps most concerning about the ongoing greenskin conflict that it would seem Glasgow Vicodin was using to his advantage is some surprising sociological finds as we continue to put down the green threat on the planet. We were able to explore some of their war camps, and we found concerning evidence of perhaps a new deity rising. Gork and Mork, of course, are known quite thoroughly throughout the galaxy as the orcs' gods of choice. We know they have had some smaller, perhaps less important deities throughout. However, we found several statues to a new god that seems to have risen amongst the orcs. Something that, according to prisoners before their execution, was known as Visas Hulhet, a mighty orc warrior known for slaying constantly. And the orcs themselves seem oddly reverential, not only of the combat prowess of these Hulhet, but of the questions that it posed them. They say that it constantly asks them to question their own existence in a way that is somewhat concerning. Existential crises amongst the orcs are something to be carefully monitored, as it shows that their intelligence is perhaps reaching new heights. But nevertheless, it kept asking if they were orcs, and they had to consider it very carefully. This new god is tremendously concerning, and one whom we should open a file on immediately. If they come to worship this warrior orc, the Sashulhit, as a god, who knows what future wars we could face. Handwritten note. Thank you for your report, sir. It would seem someone is having you on. The term you're looking for is, this is bullshit. So the curfews have been getting worse on Last Gleaming. And that is largely because of a pretty massive hive war going on in the lower levels between two gangs. And the problem with building an entire city around an inquisitorial outpost in the armpit of the galaxy is it tends to draw a lot of scum and villainy, a lot of different types of operators, everyone from highly trained professionals, the kind any inquisitor would be happy to have on their retinue, to wannabe adventurers seeking quest boards and the like, to the people who wash out, to criminals who have been conscripted into service, to those left behind and forgotten. And though the Inquisition itself has higher concerns, what with, the forces of chaos, the forces of the Xenos, and, of course, heretics within the Imperium itself, for the people who live on Last Gleaming, there are a number of other concerns. Concerns perhaps more suited to survival, or in some cases, purely to entertainment. As in any large city, there are bars. There are dens of ill repute. There are places to get any pleasure one could possibly seek. But the bar is where we're going to focus today, because below the meridian, the line of law and order that separates the main patrol areas of the Adeptus Arbites security forces in the Hive, and the places that are still technically under the auspices of under the protection rather of the Adeptus Arbites, but are patrolled somewhat less frequently. There is a lonely establishment that is damn out of place. It is almost as though someone had copy pasted a building from a different place in a different era and had dropped it deep into the guts of the Hive. It's unassuming. It's a building that minds its own business, and yet does seem an oddity. But truly, in a Hive, such oddities are to be expected here and there. And this bar is being adversely affected by these curfews as the gang war, the Hive war, between the Redacted and the Loyal Retainers escalates. Two separate factions, street gangs, the Redacted, former members of retinues who've been erased, who have been disappeared, who have been lost to Imperial record, and the Loyal Retainers, the benchers, the people who are just waiting, because tomorrow will be the day they get called up. Tomorrow is the day, for sure. And unfortunately, when you have a bunch of people who feel completely burnt by the system and a bunch of people who really, really believe that if we all just keep our heads down for one more day, we'll all get called up by the system, come into conflict, things get bad for all involved. And as a result, curfews have been implemented that have been really hurting the bottom line of our fair bar. And this bar is staffed by people who didn't necessarily want it, but who have it by force of necessity. So Del, Laura, your characters both technically own, kind of just possess this bar. Do you have a name for it?
Oh boy.
Not yet.
Totally fine. So the name of the bar is the Claw and Wing.
Love it.
It has a very classic British tavern vibe, which is part of the reason why it seems so out of place. Hand-laid stone exterior, like a classic stone wall, like with like a lot of different kinds of stones. Almost looks like I'm thinking almost like a Hobbit hovel from the outside. But surrounded by Hive, like it's not like it's in a clearing or anything. And inside, we are talking wood paneling, exotic wood paneling from floor to ceiling. There's a big space boar head. It's, I don't know, purple or some shit, mounted over a roaring hearth. And the place has a sense of class and timelessness that you'd expect on a feudal world, not buried deep in a modern Hive. And despite all of the troubles that have befallen Last Gleaming, it is a damn modern Hive. Like, the best way to think of this is kind of like the deep streets of Blade Runner, or like the lower levels of Coruscant or Nar Shaddaa from Star Wars. Just like bustling, to some extent, like neon-drenched, very active, very busy, vaguely cyberpunky Hive space, bathed, of course, in eternal twilight. With the death of the sector's sun, this planet has not seen sunlight in a century, and as a result, everyone here is on a weird cocktail of pills to try and keep the necessary levels of health up and running, which of course varies pretty drastically from people up in the tower to people in the lower depths of the Hive who don't really need the sun anymore because they haven't seen it in so long. But otherwise, as Hives go, certainly not the best, but definitely not the worst. And that's in part because of all of the additional money that comes in from all of the travelers who travel with Inquisitors coming and going. I described this when we were building our characters as being a little bit like Kingston, the town that I went to school, that has like 8 prisons and 3 universities. So like very transient population, very mixed population that just comes and goes, and you never really know who's going to be there at any given time and what the character of the place will be at any given time. And that's very much Last Gleaming. It's a hive that is eternally in flux, except for those left behind, like the two of you working here at the Claw and Wing. So with the curfew having been moved up, the bar is hurting. And the bar is never doing tremendously well. It doesn't have to, because you're not exactly paying rent for reasons we'll get into. But it's the bottom line is hurting, and you're starting to reach the end of the cash reserves that came with the bar when your Inquisitor died. He didn't exactly will it to you, but he didn't exactly not will it to you. And as a result, your contact within the tower, the last communique you received from them, was to take care of the place and do what you will with it. Unfortunately, the cash reserves are starting to run out, and as a result, things are starting to get a little bit more dire. And the curfew has really hurt that. It means that Last Call has had to move up quite considerably. So on tonight of all nights, you've decided to try and push Last Call to turn a profit. It's a bit of a risk, but it's one that you think you can get away with. Again, you're not running a flashy operation. It is very much a quiet tavern kind of situation. But you're kind of in a spot where you pretty much need to do this. A bunch of your regulars are taking full advantage of this because the bar staying open a bit later means one more night of not having to worry about not being in an inquisitorial retinue, which is really all most of these people can hope for. And as a result, they are living it up. I'm curious, as we meet both of your characters, what's the job you are currently involved in doing on this late Last Call evening at the Claw and Wing? Del, let's start with you.
Sure. My character would definitely be watching the door, which I think has a closed question mark sign on it, which is like, we are technically closed, but there's people in here. And then also going from table to table, checking on the people, making sure, like trying to push more drinks on them, basically.
Great. So, Del, you approach a table with one of your regulars, Killian Thrang, is sitting there. He is think like a Walmart Brad Pitt. So if you bought Brad Pitt at Walmart rather than the luxury brand Brad Pitt, very handsome. He is wearing, for lack of a better term, like generic sci-fi gear. He's got like the one metal shoulder pad. He's got gauntlets of vaguely ill-defined nature. Like you don't really know if they do anything or not. He does have a las pistol, which is probably the best thing going for him. And he definitely is trying to play off a bit of the Star-Lord type vibe. But you've honestly never seen him work. But he is always talking about maybe working. He prides himself as a jack of all trades. Got a bit of a gut going, kind of like, he sucks it in when he stands up, but like it's there. And he's constantly poring over the wanted ads for inquisitorial retinues and bounties. Because, again, as a hive world dedicated purely to servicing the Inquisition, there is a lot of turnover, and he's kind of constantly looking for that proper gig. As you approach him, he shoots you a friendly smile, and sure enough, raises his glass. What does he see as you approach? What do you look like? And what name does he greet you by?
So, oh man, what name does he greet? I don't think she gives her name out to many people, so they can just call her whatever they want. But she, for our purposes, her name is Morgan Rawls, and she is very tall and all legs. She has long black wavy hair. She has kind of an Eva Green vibe, only more pointy. She has extreme RBF, and she's wearing a fancy, which is resting bitch face for those of you.
You saved me quietly Googling it while on mute.
Yes. So she has a fancy frilly white shirt with a cravat and a blue vest, and then has a belt around her waist, which has a little knife. And then she also has long opera-like black gloves that go up to the top of her arms but have the fingers open. So she would walk up to him and be like, "Oh, Gillian, you are out of drink again. I am so sorry. Let me get you something else. I know what you like, but I can get you something new. Maybe a little more expensive, but..."
A little more expensive, you say? Well,
it will make you able to read those papers better. I can see your eyes are not quite focusing. I will give you something with a little more buzz.
All right, Keep, I trust you. Just make sure it's within reason on the price range.
Oh, don't you worry, I have you all set. And she's like pats him on the shoulder. She's like leaning in. She's very, very saucy.
Yeah, he's having a great time, but he's trying to balance. Like he's clearly the person who has gone to Vegas just for the joy of getting to go into a casino and is now accidentally at the high roller table, and he can't possibly pull out of this. So it's both like, yeah, he's definitely into this, but was also kind of terrified. But eventually, he just like breaks into a grin that he thinks is 8 times more charming than it is. And just says, "All right, Keep, you haven't let me wrong before."
Of course not.
And why don't you? And like his eye twitches ever so slightly. He says this. He's like, "Well, why don't you grab one for yourself too?" At which point, the guy at the table next to him says, "If you're buying drinks, perhaps one for Dorbis Horbis as well."
Oh, we cannot leave Dorbis Horbis out of these.
Of course.
Now, share the wealth.
And there's a guy who looks. I don't know if any of you remember the Hercules cartoon that aired briefly. But Icarus in the Hercules cartoon had like big jagged hair, and like his eyes were like slightly like different sizes because it flew too close to the sun and it bummed him out.
Made in wild.
Yeah, so that's this guy. He's just got like Dr. Wily, like crazy spiked hair, and he's wearing, for lack of better term, like a spirit Halloween equivalent of like what someone thinks a psyker wears. So it's all like purple and gold, and it's got like filigree and like big swirls. It has big unnecessary cuffs. Underneath, he's just like every time he moves, he clinks because he's wearing so much machinery to pull off these psyker tricks that he sounds like a walking cutlery drawer. But you all kind of humor him because you know that Dorbis Horbis prides himself on being the area psyker. And he was too good for the Imperium, so they had to like cut him loose, and now he's out here. So he's sitting nearby, like just floating a spoon between his hands, which all of you have determined is just 2 magnets in his gloves, like Iron Man style. But you let him have it.
Look, this time you don't read my mind. I read yours. I figure out what drink you want, and I get it. Yes, on Killian.
On Killian, this is why I come here. Dorbis Horbis knows the best place to drink, and it is always here at the Claw and Wing. Thank you, dear Keeper.
So
gonna go to the bar.
Yeah. So Morgan. Morgan, you there are other customers who are working, but 2 drink orders is enough for now. You can't call on the whole bar at the same time.
No, we try, but we try.
And unfortunately, based on the sort of the come on that you use in a lot of these places to like dial up the business, like a lot of the people in this room are carrying a quiet torch for you in the way that people do for unattainable bartender folk. So you don't want to end up in a talk hole with anyone because like looking around, there's like a big burly barbarian guy with like a vibro axe who keeps kind of darting looks up from a scroll that he's writing on, and you just fucking know that Aurelian Gorewalker is writing you more poetry, and it's always terrible. But he has been very helpful at like throwing undesirables out of the bar before, so it pays to keep him around but not pay him, which is great. But you also know if you get over there, like he's gonna start comparing you to like the midnight sun of a planet he doesn't know, and that's gonna take your time. So Morgan, you approach the bar and you run into your business partner. And really the only other person in the hive that you know beyond your regulars. Laura, what does Morgan see as she approaches, and who are you?
She sees a man in his late 60s, fairly tallish, kind of 6 feet-ish, but sturdy, athletic. Clearly was could wield a weapon in his day, right? And he's wearing everything is like Imperial Navy issue, but with no insignia on it. So he's wearing like some flak armor, but he's got like the Navy boots. He's got like a high collar. He's got the belt.
So it's like a surplus store purchase where just everything's been removed.
That's what it would look like.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know it isn't for you, but just from a visual standpoint, it's
exactly. Okay. And this is Eli Sharp, and I imagine Morgan expects, or maybe would hope to find him behind the bar, but he's not. He's like leaning in front of the bar, holding court with some new customers who've obviously never been there before, because he just saying the same thing he says every night.
So Eli, you are currently holding court with Sean Doe, noted assassin.
Sean Doe.
Yeah, who is dressed, think like Neo from the Matrix, so just like long leather trench coat, like military strapped with holsters, strapped with guns underneath. And he's wearing a black balaclava with a red target on his forehead.
Wow.
But he's been having a lot of trouble figuring out how to drink through it in a way that maintains the mystique. So there's been a lot of in comics when like Spider-Man tries to eat or anything, it's always kind of funny and they make a big meal of like, just can't do it. So like there's a lot of that, and he's finally settled on just drinking through the mesh. So he's got kind of a big dark liquid soaked stain over his mouth, but he's listening like with rapt attention to you, because as someone who has labeled himself a notorious, like a famed assassin, like clearly he also trades on these sorts of stories, so he's all in. And the other person who's wandered in is a teenager, who is wearing who's just all like, think like DJ Quails, just like all arms and gangles. And he's wearing armor that looks like almost Cadian armor, but like a knockoff Cadian armor. And it's too big. All of it is too big. He's just like a beanpole wearing like basically football player armor. So it makes him wildly kind of misshapen. He's got a slug thrower, so like it uses ballistic rounds that he has tooled up to look like a las rifle. But it's very clear that like it's painted and wood, and it's for, at a distance might do the trick. Yeah. But I think Eli, you're like the kind of, what kind of customer are you looking for to like tell these stories to? I assume it's like impressionable, excitable people. Is that like you want to relive the glory days, or does it matter?
Just someone who will react to the story.
Okay, great.
Eli's probably what time of day is it? If we're talking 24-hour day, we're like talking like 3 a.m.
Well, no, because curfew's early, so it's like 11 p.m. But it's 11
p.m. So he's probably
PM.
6 drinks in.
Okay. Wow. All right. Okay. So you've got this teenager who has who boldly declared himself as I think the term he used was like emerging adventurer, Matthias Chingus. And he is he's like standing, he's basically, you notice that he's constantly trying to pose like Sean Doe, but Sean Doe doesn't pose impressively, so they're both just mirroring bullshit at each other. Or at least you would notice if you weren't so wrapped up in your drink and your stories, which I think is really more important. But Morgan, you would notice this. Eli, what story are you currently telling?
Well, look, all's I'm saying is, if we had my crew, mine, we'd have been dealt with this fragging hive war the second it started. One hit, 5 minutes of planning, surgical strike, take them out.
And Sean Doe is nodding with his weird drink that now has a lot of balaclava floating in it. And he just says, "Yes, this is a single shot, one kill. It is the Shanto way, and it sounds like it is yours as well, Eli Sharp."
Well,
like
multiple shots from many people.
Multiple shots. And he like puts down the drink and pulls out a notepad. Just writes multiple shots. And Matthias says, that sounds pretty impressive. I gotta ask, sir, how did you lead them into battle though? Like to do all those strikes without, leveling a hive sounds pretty hard. And I'd like to know, so one day an emerging adventurer like myself could have a similar experience.
What are you? An emerging adventurer?
Yeah, I'm trying to make a name for myself. Yeah, I'm going on some adventures with the Inquisition.
You think, as an adventurer, you're gonna board a ship and kill a bunch of orcs?
Yeah.
10 times your number?
Whoa, that sounds like a lot of orcs.
Oh, son. Nah. He is about to tell him to get out and then sees Morgan.
Morgan is trying to interject this.
It's like, more money, I'll pour you another drink.
And Mateus pulls out whatever the smallest denomination is. It's clearly allowance. And it's just counting it awkwardly. And just says, one alcohol, please. And Sean is shaking his head next to you. He's all in on of course you're not going to board, not like us. We're cool. As you approach Morgan to see this grim scene. How do you feel about this scene you've walked in on?
Morgan would try to grab Eli by the crook of his arm and move him and replace him on the other side of the bar, saying, "Look, you can tell stories all night, but you have two hands. You pour drinks with one hand, you tell stories with the other hand, all right? Please, come on, we need to make money."
But you don't understand. Look, girl, when you're talking tactics, you need both hands to show the direction. There's multiple things going on at the same time.
All right, she's gonna just start pouring the drinks herself. She's going and she's gonna pour herself the one that the guy bought and put a tiny shot of alcohol in it and put water in it, but charge it like it's a drink. So that's and then make the other drinks for the other people.
Great. So the evening progresses, and as time goes on, a few other people filter in. They come, they go. But the fact that you've pushed last call means that, it's one of those weird blessing and curses, because it means people can drink more here, but they don't necessarily know they can, so they aren't necessarily coming in. But Morgan, you are happy to see that, now that Killian is kind of stuck, he's just kind of committed to it. The drink helps.
That's good.
So, you approach him and Dorbus Horbus with their drinks, and Killian just says, "Well, listen, as a jack of all trades, it behooves me to be good at a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and one of the things I'm good at is toasting, good service, and a good host." So, and he raises his glass and he says, "So to you, our fair, mysterious keeper, and your and he looks at Eli, just gesticulating wildly about tactics with two hands, and is
yes, our lovely benefactor who owns this place. Of course, you should not speak poorly of him, but we will toast to the both of us. We will toast to the I don't remember what it's called, the Claw and Wing bar. That is where we are. Look, drink working on me as well.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I think we forget the name because I think it's been locally dubbed the Emperor's Piss.
Sure, great, love that.
If that's not too heretical, is it too heretical?
No, because I think it's it would be holy piss, but I think the argument is that
you'd be hard pressed to find finer piss.
Yeah. Well, also, realistically, Inquisitor Canehurst opened this place because it reminded him of home. So, as someone who got a cruel shock the first time I had a British beer, where it's served warm and not really carbonated, I think it's just the kind of thing where he brought in a bunch of local liquor and beverages that are so completely alien to this hive that I'm sure drinks whatever swill they can make, that everyone's just fuck this place. But also realistically, like, you didn't open it. It's just a place where you live. Like, you don't need to know the name. It's totally fine. Great. So the cheers go down. Killian continues to now he's in entertainer mode. So he's, listing off potential jobs and potential retinues. And he's like, oh, I mean, this Malleus one looks up my alley as someone who has faced down forces of chaos before. And from the back, you just hear Gore Walker let out a single Edna Krabop like, ha! And then go back to his writing. But the mood in the bar is jovial, if small. And Morgan, you actually feel so you can relax. Now, unfortunately, for the money you are making off of some of these chumps, it is going directly into Eli's mouth, which is not unexpected, but is a bit of an issue. But this was a risk, and it seems to be paying off. Eli, how did you feel about pushing the last call on this? How much do you care about the bar turning a profit?
Not one bit.
Okay.
I barely notice.
Great. So the good news, Morgan, is you're not up against any resistance here, but at the same time, you've got to balance being open long enough to be like, how much is he going to drink while we stay open? Is it worth?
It used to be a pretty level split. And as the nights go on, Morgan can make his drink shittier and less strong, but it's starting to be a crapshoot.
Great. So eventually, Morgan, as often happens, you have to run back for something. There's the good stuff is probably under lock and key. Then, if you're worried about Eli getting to it,
there's a back room with stuff.
Yeah. So when you have a moment alone in the back room, like what is a moment of peace for Morgan Rawls like?
The moment of peace is just a big sigh and not having to perform this bullshit, caring about people or doing any of this shit. This is all garbage. Nobody cares. She would rather just be quiet and alone somewhere. So that moment where it's just all drowned out and muffled, it's like, that alone in the dark is where Morgan feels nice and comfortable. So just being in the back hallways where they have stuff and the rooms back there is always is a joy. Just cold and dark and metal hallways. And it's like, okay, it's recentered.
Yeah, you briefly, as you feel that sense of calm, you have just a flash of kind of your life to this point and who you were before you were scooped up by the Inquisition, before you found yourself pressed into the service of Inquisitor Cainhurst. And it's odd because despite all the stress of being out there, the moments like this really are where you feel the starkest contrast between your life on the run and who you've become now. And unfortunately, as you hear, Eli's voice rise with the telling of some long lost battle, how precarious your situation here is. No one seemed to care about Cainhurst's little pet project, his little slice of home. It was like a little oddity souvenir he brought. But if anyone ever did come knocking, you guys would pretty much be fucked. And all the money that was available in the accounts that you had access to is basically like, it's not gone, but it's really getting there. So it's a piece, but a delicate one. Similarly, Eli, is there a point at which you kind of retreat into yourself, or are you like out amongst the people for the entirety of the night?
Yeah, I would say Eli is drinking to stop retreating. He's like, he drinks, he tells stories, he interacts. That's all to prevent him like contemplating his life.
So eventually, as that drunk at a bar does, you drift to a new table. Sean and Mightius are arguing now about weapons. It's just a weird it's almost like a Zoolander and Hansel argument, where it's just like, or like a Will Arnett argument, where it's just kind of like, with my last gun, I could just get you a distance. Ah, yes, but you could not hit me a distance if I've already shot you in the back of the neck with my guns. And it's just like this stupid argument about like, well, but if. So you find yourself wandering over and kind of like seated, probably doing that thing where you're one table away from Dorbus Horbus and Killian Thrang's tables, but then you turn around and Dorbus Horbus is like, I could not help but hear that you were talking about how you would end the Hive War between the Redacted and the Loyalists. This is very curious to Dorbus Horbus because business is generally bad for all involved, particularly for resident psychers, with all of the problems with the two gangs. So how would you stop it other than a surgical strike? Do you think perhaps you could talk some sense into the two leaders? I'll read your mind, but you should tell me.
Talk sense into two factions that are fighting? How long have they been fighting for? There ain't no sense in this anymore. You kill them all, you kill them quick. No other way.
So I've read your mind, and it seems that you're suggesting you just killed them all quick and fast. That seems kind of extreme even for Dorbus Horbus.
Every time.
And Killian is like, that is kind of scary there, Eli. Hey, I've been meaning to ask about the duds there. I mean, I like your look, but I hope you don't mind me saying you got a bit of a. Oh, yeah, I mean, you got a bit of a Navy cut going there. Where'd you get an Imperial Navy outfit?
The damn Navy.
So wait, so you actually served? Sorry, I thought you were just.
Did I actually serve? Are you new here?
I mean, no, but what if you're in the Navy? What are you doing down here?
You know what happens? The Inquisition gets involved. You're having a great time. You're killing it. And then they ask you to do this thing, and you do it. And then the Navy, they publicly call you a liar, and you end up on this shithole. And then I think he throws up.
And as you're throwing up, Killian's literally like, oh man, yeah. I wish the Inquisition would call me up so I could have that great time. Like, completely missed the cautionary side of it.
Yeah.
And Dorbus Horbus is like nodding knowingly, and like they share a little bit of camaraderie about it. Morgan, you come out to find Eli throwing up, but before you can reach him, a massive, bulky, muscular form just like darkens your pathway. And he puts on little glasses, and then he raises a scroll, and he says, "Mysterious barkeeper, keeper of Aurelian Gorewalker's heart, I have torn many hearts from many chests, but it is you who has defeated me in kind. They say irony and karma are twins. Well, if so, they must be dear friends of yours." He turns it over, and you realize he's got pages of this. He's got he's been working the past few nights.
All right. She's going to interrupt and put her hands on his hands and push down the papers a little bit and say, Aurelian, these words, they are so precious. You cannot just share these in public. You should give this to me. I will keep it, and I will read it in private, and perhaps I will send you a little letter in response. But I would not give these feelings so openly where everyone can hear.
And he is like a pale Nordic warrior type, and just from his toes to the top of his bald head, just blush. And he hands you the notes, and he just says, "If you do send me a return note, the famed Conqueror Gorg, who has been prophesied to murder me, will find it upon my corpse. Thus swears Aurelian Gorewalker."
Lovely swear. I will remember this for old times. Yes.
And he gives you like a pleasant nod. He doesn't really know what to do, so he like shakes your hand.
She's gonna squish his hands, like give him a little like there. Yeah,
I would say
take his note.
I would say he's never going to wash those hands again, but realistically, he's never washed those hands.
No.
Full stop. He is incidentally the only actual person that you know is involved in an inquisitorial retinue in this entire bar. Like he'll disappear for months at a time and then just come back.
I love this guy.
Bunch of thrones to spend and just like hang out. So he
nice
goes back.
To this guy.
He goes back over to his corner and just starts sharpening his axe, just absently. And then eventually stands and nods to you and makes his way out into the night, having served his purpose.
I think in the meantime, Morgan is just gonna try and sling more drinks and then also grab a towel and throw it at Eli in the vomit. Like, you figure that one out. Goodbye.
Yeah, amazing. So Eli, you get hit by a towel. What do you do?
Imagine it kind of hits me, falls off to the floor, and I'm used to this. So I just like with my shoe, just kind of mop up the vomit and then kick the towel into a corner.
Great.
Smells great in here.
You hear the distant siren of an Arbites vehicle kind of doing the rounds. Which means that theoretically you could try and close up, but Killian and Dorbus have just joined Sean Doe and Mighty. And it's now become a table of like a pissing contest between 4 people who have never pissed. So this could go on for a long time.
Yeah.
Morgan, would you try and close the bar, or would you try and stay open despite the clear signal of authorities?
I think Morgan would run and turn off all the lights. No, now we have more intimate bar experience from now on tonight. And just the sign says closed. We'll turn off all the lights. We're just friends hanging out in this bar. It's fine.
Great. So
no problem.
The bar is now just lit by the smoldering embers of the heat, or the hearth rather. Eli, I feel like you're sitting nearby, very dramatically lit.
Yeah.
Like glass in hand, watching these chuckle fucks have their delightful conversation, knowing, what's going on in the world. And Morgan, you feel like you've kind of got this in hand, which is dangerous because generally speaking, anytime in your life you felt like you've had something in hand, it isn't. And that's an unfortunate lesson your entire planet learned.
Yeah. I think something in the back of Morgan's head in general is that this is a cursed year for her. Because every 13 years, something bad happens in her life. So this is a cursed year, but she's just trying to keep that out of her general brain space and figure things out.
Which you absolutely could have done. Until the masked men emerged out of your back room with bolters and just said, "Hey, I'm afraid last call came a bit early. We're going to be needing your bar," which is when the front windows are blown out by gunfire.
This episode of the Valentyne Heresy features Ryan LaPlante at the Ryan LaPlante on Twitter as Inquisitor Lucius Valentyne, Tyler Hewitt at Tyler_Hewitt on Twitter as Attikus Vis, Laura Hamstra at EL Hamstring on Twitter, Del Borovic at Del Tastic on Twitter, and our Game Master Tom McGee at McGeeTD on Twitter. This episode was edited and mixed by Laura Hamstra, and the Valentyne Heresy's artwork was created by Del Borovic at delborovic.com, DELBOROVIC. Our theme song is The Hordes by Megan McDuffie, and our ads use the tracks No Control and Chiefs by Jazzar, JAHZZAR, available at freemusicarchive.org. When it comes to Dum-Dums and Dice, you can visit our website at dumdumdice.com. Our Twitter and Instagram are at dumdumdice, and on Facebook at facebook.com/dumdumdice. We have merchandise available at redbubble.com/people/dumdumdice. And most importantly, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dumdumdice. That's DUMBDICE. Ave Imperator, and death to all the heretics.
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. The Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue 1, George Dolby, Richard Cranium,
Sammy Boy, Orion Birchfield, Scott Garland, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, Glitch Trick, Roman Brown, Shulzari, Christian Mendez, Spot Allen, Flynn 1138, Alarain Okapi, and Jillian Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumbdumbdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.